Okay, Gaff. I'm now ready to discuss how DRS exclusively benefits the enemy. Can we talk about reverse stock splits while we're at it? I put the hat in the microwave to mimic the spy. I have become troller of trolls. It's both parties' fault. They're equally complicit in not only printing. I mean, fucking Powell's been the chair of the Fed the whole time. They're equally complicit in printing trillions of dollars. They're equally complicit in not appropriately taxing corporations and wealthy individuals. I mean, this isn't one party or the other doing this. This is you know bipartisan support for these plans. It's unfortunate because the people hurt worst by it are going to be the people that can't afford to be hurt by it. America's future now depends on MOASS. I mean, no. Easy money started with Greenspan in the 90s. I mean, you can take that even further back. Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama to an extent, although he didn't really get much done in office. All complicit and Trump and Biden now, all complicit in different ways to leading us to the economic situation that we're in currently. Ultimately, they never should have allowed investment banks to speculate. I think that was really the deal breaker, which leads us to this boom crash cycle over and over and over again. Spy off a cliff. No. It's down $1 from where it was trading a minute ago. Not even a huge volume spike there. If you have no skin in the game, is the economic pullback a great thing? I mean, if you're liquid, yeah, because you can invest at the bottom. I saw a clip from a few days ago where you basically encourage people to swing trade GME. How is this helping MOASS? Buy and hold, right? Please explain. Out of context, I'm sure, but uh, in the clip, directly asked, how do GME shareholders with X or XX shares benefit from the fact that the stock is locked into a volatility cycle? They can hold forever in the hopes that we will see a short squeeze. And then, the profits lost here theoretically won't matter, right? Because the price of the stock will go so high that all of the losses over the last 6 quarters will be made up and dreams will come true. The reality of the situation is there are no reason for them to break this cycle. It's profitable for them. They can continue to do it. The market cap of GameStop is, $10 billion. And the fact of the matter is that every time one of these cycles happens, those are the people hurt the most economically, by watching their position fluctuate from low to high, without capitalizing on it at all. And yeah, those people providing liquidity into a system that already provides infinite liquidity does not make a difference. So if they're able to capture or realize profits on those cycles and invest greater sums on the bottom of those cycles, ultimately that will create more share ownership in GameStop over time. I will encourage people to do what is best for them, not for your agenda on the stock. Yeah, repealing Glass-Steagall was the beginning of the end. It was very bad. If my opposition to your solution to a prisoner's dilemma irritates you, good, it should. Has any country successfully eased off quantitative easing to the extent we are in your opinion? Define successfully. It's kind of like the Japanese 1980s asset crash. Not really the same, but there are similarities. monetary policy between Japan's central bank and the US is vastly different. I don't care if people take the clips out of context. I really don't. I'm not doing this for their benefit, right? Yeah, JJG, lit spaceman. JJG. It has exposure to the grain subindex. Corn, wheat. This is hard wheat. Corn and hard wheat. Soy, I believe, also. Buy and hold, not exactly a big deal anymore. I mean, it's... I went through a lot of this in quite a long clip that I made, but buy and hold is still essential for the continuation of cycles. And if there is a squeeze, obviously, you want to be holding the stock when it happens. And people with, 100 plus shares or liquid capital are in a much more advantageous position here, right? Because not only can they buy and hold, but they can capitalize on the cycles. Those with, no liquid capital or fewer than 100 shares cannot. And, if you're DRSing and you really support other investors and you want other investors to become wealthy off of this, then you're not going to care if, 10,000 individuals sell their fucking 5 shares each. It's irrelevant in the scheme of things. Especially if afterwards, they're buying double that number of shares or triple that number of shares or quadruple that number of shares, depending on the extent of our run from our low to high. Not only would this allow the majority of retail to average down, it would allow the majority of retail holders with smaller positions to increase their leverage on the stock, driving more illiquidity in the long term and creating more highly probable conditions for a squeeze. I have minimal shares and I've fallen for the buy and hold model since I bought it and I realized I could have been selling covered calls for a while now. Stinks, but I thank you for the message. Not bounce or possible for it to drop below 200. It could drop below 200. But people do anyway. I mean, if you think everyone out there is holding, you're insane. There are people selling every peak. All of Wall Street Bets buys in right before we run and then sells at the top. They're not fucking holding. Everyone's worried about fucking Greg over here with his 5 DRS shares selling his position. But nobody bats a fucking eye when Rentec sells 600,000 shares on a run. Or BlackRock dumps $1 million because they're rebalancing their ETF to the new price point. Don't be ignorant of the blatantly obvious in order to support your agenda or goal. The stock is bought and sold every day like any other stock. It is illiquid. It generates lots of FTDs, but that doesn't mean that the liquidity is finite. So, if Greg sells his 5 fucking shares and buys 10, that's more shares in the hand of retail at the end of this. So, if that means I hold my shares or people with 100 plus shares are not selling, and that allows the opportunity for those people with 5 shares or 10 shares or 30 shares to sell and increase their leverage. That seems like what the ape community was always supposed to be about, right? I don't think the probability of MOASS declines each cycle. I think every mechanism in the marketplace is put in place in order to avoid black swan events like MOASS. There are potentials for MOASS to happen. There are situations which have an extremely low probability of happening, in which a squeeze can occur. But as long as these cycles remain profitable, they will be they will be taken advantage of. The point at which they are no longer profitable, whether that be through GameStop increasing its valuation, increasing its liquidity in the market, or massive change in the volatility of the underlying through some other effect, which the only thing that could really happen there would be like a mass sell-off. But without that this volatility cycle remains easy to propagate, and as long as it's easy to propagate and it remains profitable, as long as it remains profitable, it will continue. You don't stop making $6 billion a year on volatility for no reason. And I think the first thing that you need to come to terms with is we do not pose a threat to this cycle. The ones that understand it to its fullest are minimal anyway. And the losses suffered by them due to our participation in this cycle and the money we take away from it and that we bleed off the edge is minimal compared to the gains they make running it. And the more we buy, the more illiquidity that we create, either through DRS or share ownership, the easier it is for them to manipulate the price of the stock, which makes it even more profitable. Because now, not it doesn't take that many shares to drive the price down, it doesn't take that many shares to drive the price up. And people think, oh, like that's bearish, like Gherk wants to sell his shares. I'll never sell my fucking shares. There's no reason to. They are a volatility asset. You can sell that volatility to the exact people manipulating the stock and they will buy it because they need to hedge. So maybe you can explain to me why for 6 quarters they deserve to be the only ones profiting from this.